Today on CityCast Philly, the Phillies are in the playoffs, and for the first time in their long history, they're playing their rivals up I-95, the New York Mets. The first two games of this series have been intense. What is it about this rivalry? Today, a Mets fan from Philly, yeah, that's me, talks with a Phillies fan about baseball, booing, and bonding with your kids. It's Tuesday, October 8th. The Mets and Phillies are tied at a game apiece. I'm Matt Katz, filling in for Trinae Nuri, and here's what Philly's talking about. Abraham Gutman, reporter at the Philadelphia Inquirer. Welcome back to CityCast Philly.
It's good to be here.
So we are in the National League Division Series right now, best of 5 playoff round, and the Phillies and the Mets tied up 1-1 after a walk-off thriller that saw the Phillies win on Sunday.
Into left field, down the line, it's a fair ball, and the Phillies have tied the series. Back to Queens, one apiece.
The teams now head to New York tonight for Game 3. You, though, report on the courts for the Inquirer. So why did I run into you at Citizens Bank Park with media credentials around your neck on Sunday? Explain what you've been doing for the Yankee this playoff season.
Yeah, I cover the civil courts. So a lot of my day-to-day is a little bit more quiet than the bank at Red October.
Right.
I also am a Phillies fan and someone who in recent years got really excited into baseball. So for weeks, maybe months, I've been pestering my editor that if and when, not to jinx it ahead of time, Red October comes, I would love to do kind of fan color reaction from the bank. And I was lucky enough to get the assignment.
And you got to both games 1 and 2. What is the difference, can you explain, between going to a regular season game, going to like a Phillies Nats game in May compared to the first ever Mets-Phillies playoff game at Citizens Bank Park, the difference in just the experience of being in that stadium?
So when I came to my first Phillies games, when I moved to Philly in 2016, the experience was much more, I'm here because it's a nice experience to sit and have a hot dog on a beautiful day.
Right.
Less because the energy is so electric.
Mm-hmm.
And I think that that's not what we're seeing, at least not in the last 3 years.
Yeah.
That we're seeing a bank that is electric, that you have games in May that feel like playoff. Now I know that they don't actually feel like playoff because what I experienced mainly on Sunday was out of this world. This idea of 45,000 people, each one with their red towel locked in. And from the first pitch, if it's a strike or a ball, I'm walking around the concourse speaking to people, but I know because 45,000 people will tell me either with cheer or with disappointment every single pitch. And I have goosebumps talking about it.
So you're an immigrant to this country. So you didn't grow up with baseball at all. You've never seen a game. You never threw a baseball, but you became intoxicated by this sport. Was that because of the Phillies? Was it the Phillies that got you into this whole sport and made you this hardcore fan?
100%. There's this thing that you know the month of the year by the hats of like the people walking to the hospitals on South Street.
Right. If it's January, you see
green, and April it starts to be blue, like for the Sixers,
right.
And October it's red, and it's everywhere. The city was lit red.
The skyline.
Literally.
Yeah.
And you can't escape it. You have this team that, has some really exciting player and has Bryce Harper, but isn't supposed to be there. Terrible start. And suddenly things click. They love each other. Mm-hmm. They have this like weird connection. Mm-hmm. And they're very affectionate to one another in a non-bro-y way. We can talk about specific moments that I will forever find super charming. And these guys that you want to root for. So there was something very Philly about the energy. There was something very Philly about the team. And I think that for most people, sports is about something bigger than the athleticism.
Right.
Sports about stories. It's about connection. It's about identity. It's about place. And as I think about my Philly story, I have 2 kids who were born in Philly. This is my life. I'm a local news reporter. this is my connection. And part of it is the Phillies. And I became also in love with the sport. But the first pitch I ever threw in my life was to my 3-year-old son.
That's beautiful.
So I completely understand the lore of baseball in a different way. And I think the lore of the Phillies is a whole different level.
So did Sunday's game where the Phillies came back and won in a walk-off, and then Saturday's the first playoff game at the bank that you experienced, did that take your Phillies fandom and your appreciation for baseball and this club to a different level?
There's nothing more electric than 45,000 people celebrating together.
Mm-hmm.
There might be nothing worse than 45,000 people silent together.
So you heard the silence on Saturday and the celebration on Sunday.
Also in moments on Sunday,
right.
It was a roller coaster, but the tension and how much this means to people. Again, I'm a newcomer, but I'm a student of the city. Try to learn how much this means to people.
Mm-hmm.
People in this town know that good times don't tend to last too long.
Yeah.
You have good teams, then you don't see the playoffs for a decade, right? I think the idea of a window looms on this town larger than other places that maybe had more opportunities to dip in the water of what a championship could feel like.
This town has 2 baseball championships in a 120-something year history of this ball club. Just 2.
And even if we go closer in history, we're all talked about Red October all year as if it's a given. Red October wasn't a given 4 years ago.
Sure. Right.
Right? Like this was not a thing. Whether or not we will play more home or away games in the NLCS is a level of cockiness that I love for Philly, that Philly deserves. Walking around the bank during a playoff games made me realize that I love the Phillies. I get mad about the Phillies. I don't fall asleep after a stupid decision that, the game ends and they lost because they seemed like they just couldn't hit even if you give them 100 more innings. It drives me nuts. But I saw where I could go if I continue my life in this city. There was a moment in the Saturday game that people were so locked in that it felt rude to try to interview people. It felt like I will break a spell that I interrupt something so intimate because they waited so long to be in the bank. A lot of people, this is their only playoff game or only series game.
Yeah.
And I'm going to come now and chat you up. And then when people started leaving after the horrible 8th that felt like 5 hours, when the bullpen kind of blew the game, suddenly no one would talk to me. And I approached this guy and I always kind of lift my media credential first to be like, hey, I'm in the Inquirer. And he just looked at me and said, really? Really? You're really coming to me now? Really? Really? And he just looked at me and said, maybe 2025.
Wow.
Which was heartbreaking.
Yeah.
But he could,
after one loss. So
before the game wasn't over.
Oh my goodness.
But this idea that there's magic in your hands and it's like sand that it's spilling and it can slip away in any moment.
Right. And that intensity also translates into positive energy. Like when I was there, it was my first time ever being in a playoff game at the bank. The sea of red towels is so visually stunning when you have 40,000 plus people swirling this red towel around. And then there's a vibration from the cheering and the stomping. And then, at least in the lower levels, everybody was standing from the 1st to the 9th inning, which is a highly unusual baseball experience if you go to regular season games.
I really appreciate that in my telling of the story, it's 45,000 people attendance and everybody's a Phillies fan and you're about 40,000. You give some, there's a couple Mets fans.
I was there with my son as a Mets fan, unfortunately, on Sunday. I mean, I've been in this town for 22 years, but I retained this one thing from my upbringing in Queens. So I'm still a Mets fan, and I've put this burden on my son, who was born here.
Horrible.
And he had to sit there on Sunday night with me and watch this.
So let me ask you a question.
Yeah.
I interviewed a few Mets fans that had some negative experiences at the bank. How was it entering the stadium, exiting the stadium, walking around?
Yeah, I heard about negative experiences. I actually did not. I got a sarcastic good luck going into the game. And then I think the fact that I was with a adorable 9-year-old in Mets gear, it's sort of inoculated me from some of the hate that I otherwise might have gotten. We have actually had rougher experiences at Phillies games. So he heard a range of words he had never heard before in the past at the bank.
Got it.
The funniest insult that I got, like from a heckler a couple of years ago, telling my son that he didn't have to keep me and he could go and find a Phillies fan father. But there were also far fewer Mets fans at these playoff games than the dozen or so Mets-Phillies regular season games I've been to in the past. I don't know if Mets fans were scared away or the preference for Philly season tickets holders took hold or whatever it might be, but it's really amazing for the first ever playoff series between these two teams. It really was blanketed in a sea of red.
Yeah, people were like, do not sell your tickets. Like, we need the bank. And
do not sell your tickets because then people from New York will buy them on StubHub and whatnot.
Right. I think that when you had the Knicks-Sixers series, there was this like trauma of Knicks fans taking over and Mets fans did not.
More on Mets Phils and Red October after the break.
This episode is brought to you by BetterHelp. October is the season for wearing masks and costumes, but some of us feel like we wear a mask and hide more often than we want to. At work, in social settings, around family, therapy can help you learn to accept all parts of yourself. Therapy has been helpful for me to learn positive coping skills and how to set boundaries. It empowers you to be the best version of yourself. If you're thinking of starting therapy, give BetterHelp a try. It's entirely online, designed to be convenient, flexible, and suited for your schedule. Just fill out a brief questionnaire to get matched with a licensed therapist and switch therapists at any time for no additional charge. Take off the mask with BetterHelp. Visit BetterHelp.com/CityCast today to get 10% off your first month. That's BetterHelp, HELP.com/CityCast.
Hi, this is David Plotz of CityCast. Have you thought about a gift for yourself this year? One that has the power to help you grow and learn and become a better version of yourself? Give yourself the gift of language by getting Babel. With quick 10-minute lessons handcrafted by language experts, Babel gets you talking a new language in 3 weeks, because talking is the key to really knowing a language. And that's how Babel approaches it. It's designed for real conversation. So I have a trip to France planned with my girlfriend. Was it inspired by the Olympics? Yes, it was. And it's given me the chance to revive my old high school French. And it's so fun to catch back up with the vocabulary I'd forgotten, to remember all the food. For example, I'm in a lesson on ingredients, so I'm going to make crepes with butter and sugar. Avec sucre et de beurre salé, on va se régaler. We're going to have a feast. I learned this great new French expression too. J'en ai l'eau à la bouche. That means I have water in the mouth. That means it's mouth-watering. Love it. Love French. Anyway, Babel gets you talking, and studies from Yale and Michigan State University and other leading universities prove that it works. So here is a special holiday deal for CityCast listeners. Right now, get up to 60% off your Babel subscription, but only for CityCast listeners at babbel.com/CityCast. Get up to 60% off at babbel.com/CityCast, spelled BABBEL.com/CityCast. Rules and restrictions may apply.
Do Philly fans hate New York teams more than they hate any other team from any other city?
It's a question that I heard discussed all week. What is the rivalry for the Phillies? The Braves?
Who have actually affected their
100%.
success more than any other team.
And in the last 3 years, were the team to chase.
Right.
The team that we were worried would catch up to us, to the Phillies, was the Braves.
Mm-hmm.
The Braves were the National League East winners, I believe, the last 2 years. So the Braves were the team that, even if there's not that regional passion, they're the one that you're...
That's the natural rival.
Right. It's a natural rival. It's the one you're trying to beat. It's the one we did beat this year. And it's the one that we had to beat in playoffs 2 years in a row to get to the NLCS and 2022 the World Series. I talked to this guy on Saturday and I asked him, this was before the 8th, vibes were still tense but good. And I asked him, what is it about New York? And he said that New Yorkers always think they're better than us because they're like the big apple, the shiny item, the big city, and that New Yorkers are someone you see. Right? When do you run into a Braves fan?
Right.
But the New Yorkers, like, you're a Mets fan.
Yeah.
Like, they're everywhere.
Right.
And so this idea that this can come up in your office trash talk much more than it's likely to come up like with the Braves fan, I think that's a big part of it. And then there is this idea that while we're a big city, we're grittier, we're tougher. We have this like, right, Broad Street Bulldogs mentality.
Sure.
That beating New York is crucial to prove.
And there are native New Yorkers amongst us, right? I mean,
you can't know. Like sometimes there's nothing. They look the same.
And particularly in recent years, there's right. During COVID, a lot of New Yorkers moved down here. I mean, this is now a phenomenon in the city. My son, a native-born Philadelphian, at the game wearing his Mets gear on Sunday. So this is a relatively newish phenomenon, and that's interesting that it might make Philadelphia fans hate us Mets fans even more because we're like encroaching in their territory a little bit. There was one moment that I thought on Sunday illustrated the hate in a sort of distasteful way. The Mets left fielder and the Mets third baseman collided toward the end of the game in a moment that kind of turned the tides. They collided trying to catch a ball, and our left fielder was down for a little bit, Brandon Nimmo. And the crowd booed him. The guy was hurt. What was up with that?
I think this is also part of what is so charming about the Phillies. Not this moment, but generally, right?
Sure.
If we think about the last 3 years, there was so much positivity around this team. And there was so much good. Philly fans are known as battery throwing, snowball pelting, concussion cheering, right? This is not the worst that Phillies fans cheered for it. Obviously, like no one should cheer for it in a play, but I think that there is part of that in the DNA. It's part of the grittiness. Hopefully it's in jest for most people. But at the same time, there is this other side that you had, the standing ovation to Trey Turner last year. They had a player who is not a hometown player, who gets paid a lot of money, came with a lot of promise to be kind of that missing last piece to get it done. Plays horribly for half a season, and famously, Phillies fans decide to give him a standing ovation
instead of booing him
or throwing 2D batteries on him.
Right.
And obviously, a lot of discourse, are we becoming too soft? All that, you can flip it all sides. But I think one of the reasons this is a team you want to root for is because it seems that these positive moments outweigh those negative moments. So yeah, you boo, and yeah, there's people that every time they come to the plate, you will boo them. But at the end of the day, I think the moment that would be remembered from that game for fans is Nick Castellanos running to his son.
Yeah, tell us what happened.
Iconic. So the Mets refused to die. That's the story of the Mets. Roller coaster game. Phillies come from behind 3 times, I believe. And the last time was in the 9th.
This is game 2. The Phillies are down 1-0. The Phillies are facing a situation where they'd be going back to New York, down 0-2 in a best-of-5 series. It's the bottom of the 9th inning. The Phillies have runners on base, tie ball game. Nick Castellanos up. And
this guy who started the game bickering with fans in right field, who got some boos because he chases balls, people get really upset with him, and he crushes a single. It was running in score position to walk off the game, and he gets pummeled. The dugout clears, everybody runs to him, they hug him, the entire team, and he hugs his teammates and runs back behind home plate through the net to celebrate with his son.
Nick Castellanos racing over to the backstop. His son Liam is there waiting for him. How about that?
Family first with Nick, no doubt about it. Going over to see his son, get the high five.
11-year-old Liam, who is a fixture of this team, who Nick in the past said that he feels more comfortable batting when he's there. This wholesome relationship, and it's what people remember. It's the image of this game are them shouting and joy in each other's face with Liam with Castellanos jersey. He's holding the net that is protecting the ball from the foul balls. Cassie runs to him. He holds the net on the other side, and they're like kind of yelling at each other in like joy. It's pure joy. It's a moment that I think a lot of fathers who are not as athletic as Nick Castellanos will be like, damn, I can never do something as cool as that to my kid. But he's Superman, and he just ran to his son. And it's incredible. And I think that's what will be remembered. And that's the moments that you want to show your kid when they wake up in the morning. Even if they don't love baseball, you kind of want to show that side of it. And it also kind of plays on this moment that a lot of people do have. Because sharing baseball with your kid is the most American thing.
For sure.
And it's a way for so many, especially fathers, to connect with their sons, with their daughters, with Little League, with wiffle ball. The fastest way for someone to explain the relationship with their dad, someone tells you, my dad never played catch with me. Mm-hmm. Enough said. So baseball is this catch-all also for like a type of relationship for a lot of people and their parents and their fathers specifically. And I actually stayed around a little bit at the end, like talked to some fans. And Bryson Stott, who had a triple that gave the Phillies the lead for his 27th-year-old birthday. And he comes out after a shower. He signs some balls for some kids, but he's kind of scanning the stands. And his wife comes out with their baby daughter, who was clearly very, very tired baby. And I mean, we're both fathers, and not to like over romanticize, but like suddenly there's no world around, right? There's no stadiums, there's no lights, there's no fans asking him to sign balls. He's locked in, and again shares a moment with his daughter that he will tell her years and years about his 27th-year-old birthday,
right?
And how he was with her.
Yeah, we want our kids to be proud of us, right? And even if people are making tens of millions of dollars a year and just had 45,000 people scream their name in adoration, these fathers still want their kids, that specific person, to be proud of them more than anybody else. It's pretty amazing.
And how can you not be romantic about baseball when you see stuff like that? So I think it's really, really special in that way as well.
So your prediction for how this series is going to pan out?
Hell no.
Mets in 5. What do you say to that?
If I say sure, is that like an anti-jinx? I don't know. I will say, I believe. Mm-hmm. I believe in this team. I think I want to believe that yesterday was them remembering that they can win not on a home run, but on a walk-off single, that the vibes are good, and that maybe what Bryce Harper needs is to go to New York and be booed and booed and booed to get that passion.
To get him going.
And all I want to see from the game tonight and the game tomorrow is them caring as much as the fans that I talk to at the bank.
Abraham Gutman is the Phillies vibes reporter, at least for this month, for the Philadelphia Inquirer. Appreciate it.
Thanks for having me, Matt.
Let's go Mets.
Let's go Phils.
Phillies and Mets face off again tonight, 5:08 p.m. That's game 3. Game 4, 5:08 p.m. Wednesday night. Both those games are in Queens. And if necessary, game 5, the deciding game, Friday, back at the bank. To follow Abraham's work, both on the Phillies and on the city court system, follow him on X at ABGUTMAN. We'll have a link in our show notes. That's all for today here on CityCast Philly. If you enjoyed this episode about the Phillies and the Mets, tell a Phillies fan, tell a Mets fan. Rate the show, leave us a review, and smash that subscribe button like a Schwarbomb. Be sure to sign up for our morning newsletter, Hey Philly, to learn more about what else Philly's talking about. Trinae will be back tomorrow morning with more news from around the city.